This is Lecture 30, The Rise of the Low-Carbon Consumer City. Going to be talking about a new paper of mine, joint with Matthew Holian. So the big question we explore in our new empirical paper is, are there social benefits, meaning positive externalities, when educated people, which we measure as college graduates, choose to live downtown? So our question is, when the educated cluster in center cities, rather than living in the suburbs, is an unintended consequence of this to shrink the metropolitan area's carbon footprint? I'll explain why that's possible in a moment. But the big question, and I think this is new, and I've worked on the quality of life literature for a long time, is when downtown local quality of life improves, can this actually help to mitigate global externalities? In the past, these have been sort of two separate literatures. I've contributed to both of these literatures, but until I wrote this paper with Matt, I hadn't seen the link between the two, and we're hoping to convince researchers more broadly that there is a link between downtown quality of life and fighting climate change. Why? We take it as given that if in those metropolitan areas where the educated locate downtown, that those center cities have high quality of life. And of course we recognize that the educated may be seeking short commutes, but we're going to be controlling for, in the regressions we talk about, the share of the metropolitan area's jobs that are downtown. We argue in the paper that there's both a selection effect and a treatment effect that could explain why, if the educated live downtown, that it must be the case that the center city's high quality of life. The selection effect story is a T-boo sorting. The educated have the information and the resources to live in the best part of the city. Just think of yuppies and just seeking out the best parts of the city. There's the more perhaps interesting effect is the treatment effect. If you have a cluster of highly educated people living downtown, it's likely to be the case that they're going to use their political clout and voice for politicians to provide public goods for that downtown, and you're going to see a retail effect. You're going to see better stores, restaurants, shopping opportunities opening up in those downtowns. Basically a Starbucks effect where the educated cluster. There will be profit opportunities to sell to this sophisticated group. Better coffee stores, better bookstores, everything this group wants. Just think of Berkeley and Shattuck Avenue. Think about that. Think of Harvard Square as examples of when the educated cluster of the types of unusual shopping that help to create sort of a snowball to further improve quality of life in those areas. And that's what I mean by the treatment effect. So again, this correlation between center city quality of life and the educated living there is both a selection effect, the educated seeking out areas that are exogenously nice, and a treatment effect. The presence of this group can have a causal effect on improving quality of life. Here's a picture of downtown Boston, and you can see the Rose Kennedy green space. So the Big Dig has improved this area very close to the North End. And I wanted to give you a visual example of a consumer city. So again, in Ed Glazer, Albert Saez, and Jed Kolko's well-known consumer city work, people, unlike in the past when people wanted to be downtown to be close to jobs, in a world where jobs are suburbanizing, the new modern city is a place where the educated want to play. And that's this consumer city. And so the big idea in my new work with Matt Holian is that consumer cities, when the downtown has vitality, public transit is all focused on the downtown, and people use their cars less and use public transit and walk more when there is some vitality, like what you see in this downtown Boston picture. That despite the fact that Boston is cold, Boston's known for having a great quality of life, and people who live in the Boston metropolitan area are drawn to spending more time in the city center, and that's a public transit friendly hub, shrinking the carbon footprint, even for those in the suburbs. So again, our story in the paper is when the educated cluster downtown, this is correlated with downtown vitality. Public transit is the transport mode, not the car, that connects you to downtown. And if you play downtown on weekends, you're going to drive less, you're going to use public transit and walk more. And again, that public transit is a complement, like peanut butter and jelly. Public transit is a complement of going downtown. And again, the bottom bullet point, This isn't merely about your place of work. This is about your place of play. So in our empirical paper, what Matt Holian and I do is we take the 2009 microdata from the National Household Transportation Survey, and we use multivariate regressions. And you can read our paper, but we find evidence for the claims I was stating before, that all else equal, controlling for household characteristics, controlling for the ideology of the residents, and controlling for urban form variables, all else equal, those metropolitan areas where the educated live downtown have a smaller carbon footprint. We use a second database from the National Transit Database at the city level over 20 years, and we document that public transit has been rising the most over time in those metropolitan areas which have a larger share of college graduates living downtown. Again, supportive evidence of our core hypothesis that downtown vitality contributes, downtown quality of life contributes to a smaller carbon footprint for the metropolitan area as a whole. The implications for public policy. By the theory of the second best, I mean that in the United States right now, we don't price carbon. And so there is an externality benefit when a person drives less because they have no incentive to internalize the reduced greenhouse gas emissions that they're no longer causing. Downtown quality of life causes reduced metropolitan area carbon footprint, and I think this is an interesting finding with implications for thinking about the unintended consequences of improving quality of life, whether that's reduced crime, improved air quality downtown, increased green space. When we measure the benefits of these local public goods, our paper shows that another benefit that should be counted in is this improvement in city vitality, and which leads, according to our paper, to reduced transportation carbon footprint as more of the metropolitan area's residents focus their life around the public transit-friendly center city.